Good morning. I've been told it is St. Patrick's Day. For those of you who feel very excited about St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day. But I don't have much green on, but I have enough that Elena says nobody will pinch me, so we're okay. Some of us have open hearts, and some of us aren't quite there yet, because our hearts have gotten a little beat up throughout our lives, and it may be difficult to trust and be open. Your heart is welcome here, no matter how bruised. We welcome you among us. All of us are imperfect, but we're here to drop our defenses and trust what happens in a worship that is powerful and life-giving. Together we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. Our service this morning is a little different. It's unique. We will all be participating, that means you as well, in a heart-to-heart drama. No, it's not a medical drama, but rather a story about a community and their, quote, political process of selecting a new leader. We have a few star actresses and actors, but you're not to sit back and watch. You are the village people, and we need you to participate. This script comes from another UU church, and we would give credit to them. Unfortunately, we have not been able to identify the church, so that's as best I could do. There once was a village, which you are all of, that found itself in quite a pickle. They had to choose their next mayor. The village was known as Beneficence. Try to say that 10 times in a row. One of the most wonderful places you could imagine. It was known far and wide that the people living in the village all ate together, they learned together, they laughed together. They cried when they lost something important, and they celebrated when they found something important. Beneficence was by far the best place in the world to live. Many felt that the reason it was such a great place to live was because of the mayor. She had helped run the village for a long time, as long as anyone could remember, and when she first started, she suggested a special system of taxes. She might have called it pledges, I'm not sure. They collected money, like most villages, but taxes and beneficence required people to give something of their heart as well. People were expected to give love, or care, or attention in some measurable way. It meant people were required to visit a neighbor if they were sick, help fix someone's roof if it was leaking, put the fires out, or fetch the children when it was time to come in. After a short time, the giving of love and care became natural. They enjoyed it, meaning you enjoyed it so much it wasn't a requirement at all. And the interesting thing, the giving of love and care made people feel much better about having to give money. The giving of love had made money not nearly as important. People found that they rarely had to pay someone to help them. So people exchanged love instead of money as a way of getting things done. So people gave lots of love and lots of money. And everyone was happy and the coffers were full. All because people felt that beneficence had become great because of the mayor. She was so popular. Everyone loved the mayor. Unfortunately, she died. Or rumor has it that she was called into a very long meeting from which there was no return. She was such a good mayor. Now that she was gone, the village found itself in the precarious position of looking for another leader, and thus the pickle they found themselves in. No one in the village could remember ever even electing her. It's been so long. They didn't know how to decide or even what qualities to look for. The village asked for suggestions, and one of the biggest men in the village pointed out that a leader must be strong. And one of the warriors who defended the village noted the importance of bravery. The professor of the village said that they must have lots of education and degrees, and one of the craftsmen mentioned experience. The banker pointed out that a leader must be good with numbers. The administrator pointed out a leader should have access to lots of office supplies. And of course, the poet and sage insisted that the next leader have lots of wisdom. These were compelling arguments, but it wasn't until one of the smallest among you came forward and said,
I think what made our last mayor such a great leader was that she loved us. In every decision made, we people knew we were loved.
That made their heads nod. So they decided the next leader should be someone who could love them more and better than anyone else. So naturally, they would need to select the person with the best heart, indeed a perfect heart. But they should hurry, they thought, for just in the time since the last mayor had left, the village had become more anxious. People's generosity and their calm and trusting manner became a little more cautious, a little less willing to help when needed, a little more suspicious of others' intentions. So they went about looking for someone who would love them as much as our wonderful last mayor. Someone whose heart was not too small to see the big picture, and not too big to see the little things that people did for one another. They'd have to find someone who loved more than just what was easy to love, someone who could see love in everything. But how would they find such a person? How would they know a perfect heart when they saw one? And where might they look? After much debate, it was decided that the next mayor would be selected by a contest. Posters sprang up throughout the land that the next mayor of beneficence would be the individual who proved to have the perfect heart. And that person, it was decided, would not only get to be the mayor, but as a bonus, would receive all the great wealth that accumulated in the village of beneficence. And everyone knew what that meant. Beneficence was famous. Not only was it known for kindness and love, but for riches as well. Everyone knew that the people who lived there gave away most of their money voluntarily because they always knew they would have friends and neighbors to care for them. What use did they have for money when they had all the care they could imagine? So it was decided that the contest for a perfect heart would be judged by empirical evidence. A nuclear magnetic resonance imaging machine was acquired, and it was installed in our projector. So the contestants for the mayor's job began showing up, and a picture of their heart would be taken and examined. And all the people of the village stood in the middle of the square waiting to see who would be the next mayor. Many hearts came into view, but none of them appeared to be perfect. Some seemed too small to love everything about the village. Some too big to make some of the harder decisions that required a delicate touch. Some seemed a little withered from lack of use. Some seemed tough from being over-exercised. Some were cold and meant they would not be forgiving. Some were too fiery hot, indicating they might be too passionate. For 2.5 days, people filled past the monitor. One by one, young and old, girl and boy, big and small, people revealed their heart while the village held their collective breath, hoping the perfect heart would be found. After almost every heart in the village had been tested, a stranger walked into the village square. He smiled boldly and confidently. He waved to the crowd as he was stepping up to say to them,
I have heard of your contest, and I am here to claim the prize, the throne of this village and all of the money in the coffers, because I have the most perfect heart in all of the land.
Some of the village people rolled their eyes. This was not the first time they'd heard such a claim. So when the stranger stood in front of the machine and no one was expecting to see the image that came into view, a perfect shape, perfectly sized heart in perfect condition appeared, and everyone gasped. Some folks even bowed down when they saw the image of the perfect heart.
There, you can see for yourself. My heart is perfect. I have done nothing but care for my heart since the day I was born. My parents made sure that everyone who crossed my path loved me unconditionally. I have been lavished with attention and always given the very best care. And because of that, my heart has grown to become the envy of the land. And you can see there is not a scratch on it. It is the heart of a true leader. And so I shall be the leader to all of you for the days to come.
The people of the village stood and stared. No one could deny what was being said. It was true, but somehow something seemed wrong. Although the machine showed he had a perfect heart, there was something that didn't feel right. Something about the way he looked at the people. How he spoke with such expectancy. Entitlement. It was quite different from their previous mayor. And though it was something they couldn't put their finger on, each and every person felt it in their own heart. Though this stranger did meet all the conditions of the contest of having a perfect heart, he did not give the people confidence. He did not make them feel love, that you were all looking for. He did not bring hope. And as the stranger approached the podium, the people wondered what to do. The time came for the stranger with the perfect heart to take his reign in the village. But before he made it to the podium and took up the crown, another woman stood up and got their attention. People knew her as the woman at the well. She stood by the village well and helped people draw water. And in that way, all of you knew her. Her face was always kindly, but now she looked serious. Her walk was deliberate, but not proud. And when she turned to the people, all their caution turned to curiosity.
Good people of our caring village, we lost our leader, and that has made us anxious. And in thinking about who we would get to replace her, we reflected on who we have been, who we are, and what we most wish to become. We decided of all the qualities that we want in our next leader, the most important is love. The kind of love that has helped us care for one another so well up till now, and the kind of love that has prompted us to do right by our neighbor. The kind of love that has made everything, including money, not seem much less important. We thought we could recognize a perfect leader by their having a perfect heart. And so we have stared into this machine for days to find a heart that has no flaws. And that is what we have found in the man who stands before you. But I contend to you this day that we have not found someone who has a perfect heart. We simply have found someone whose heart has not been broken. And a perfect heart is more than that.
All at once, a roar came up from the crowd. The woman's heart, which appeared on the monitor, wasn't perfect at all, and although it was beating strongly, it was more riddled with scars and rips and tears than any other heart in the village. There were places where pieces were actually missing, and lots of places where pieces seemed lumped together into the side of the heart. It was a funny hodgepodge, patchwork heart.
This old heart of mine is, I suspect, like many of yours, worn with age, broken in places, mended with time and attention. It has been held together by consoling stories, memories of how things were, and hope of the way that things might still become. Wisdom and reason have both torn it apart and placed it back together again. And the scars, which have kept it working long after it knew it was broken, are fashioned from sympathy and faith. It is the scars that actually make it stronger than it once was. I believe this heart of mine, like the heart many of you have earned, is more perfect than one without any scars.
Of course, this led the stranger to protest that he had won the contest fair and square. He started to demand the crown, which only confused the people of the village. They stood in the middle of the square and listened. On one side, the stranger pointed to his perfect heart, and on the other side, the woman pointed to a very different image. The people, it seemed, were torn between a choice they had not anticipated. A call came forth from the crowd that the people should decide on the type of heart that would most likely lead to the love they were looking for. The commotion would not die down. Most of the people who had still not chosen a side felt frustrated and anxious. People began to lean toward one side and see their friends were moving to the other side, and for a moment they were paralyzed in indecision. And then someone asked what the last mayor would have done, and then another asked what a perfect heart would choose in this situation. The crowd turned to the two candidates and fixed an expectant look in their direction. What would someone with a perfect heart do in this situation? Let us decide based on their answers. And they all became quiet as they waited for the two leaders to speak. The stranger with the perfect heart stepped up first and shouted before them.
A good heart always remains strong, true to the course. It doesn't waver and it doesn't falter. A good heart always makes the right choice based on the most perfect of reasoning, the evidence of a sure thing. A good heart never chooses a course that might lead to regret. Look at that woman over there. She has wasted her time and attention on things that led to heartache. She has opened herself to disappointment. Her heart records the number of times she has loved and lost, and the many ways she has discovered brokenness. She has watched love slip through her fingers and felt the sting of emptiness and loneliness. Her path is never certain. Follow me, and I promise you will never know loss. You will never know disappointment, because you will understand what it means to have a perfect heart.
As he finished, he could see a few people in the middle of the square shaking their heads. The woman stood up next and looked around the crowd, and she smiled.
Of course, everything he has said is right. A good heart always makes the right choices, never wavers or falters or chooses path it regrets. And he's also right. I have followed down many paths that led to disappointment and heartache. And there is a reason for that. My heart, do you see that scar running right down the middle? That's the first broken heart I ever had. It came when the boy I had a crush on in second grade asked me if I would walk him to the bus on the last day of school. I said no, because I wasn't sure what would happen. I was afraid I would say something silly or he would reject me. So we never did. He moved away during the summertime, and I never saw him again. I vowed it would be the last time I ever cried for not loving someone. Since then, my life has been about taking risks. Little ones, where I let others know I like them. Big ones, where I opened my heart and my world to people, even when I didn't know what would happen next. I made best friends with people I knew would move away. I waited for some of them to come back. Sometimes they did. I watched people and pets I loved dearly get sick. I watched as some of them died, and I chose to be with them all the way, even though I knew it would hurt more than I could have imagined. I stayed with the woman down the road when her son left home, even when she cried and cried for days, and I had nothing I could think to say that didn't sound stupid. I tried, but eventually she stopped crying and I stopped feeling stupid. I tried and tried to be a ballerina because it was my dream. I didn't give up even when I wasn't picked for the recital. No matter how many times I wasn't picked, and I cried when it didn't happen like I imagined. But I found a way in my mind to think of myself as a ballerina, and that has made a world of difference to me. I risked losing friends by standing up for people who were treated badly for being different, either because they were a different color, or they spoke a different language, or they were gay, or sometimes I fell in love at the wrong times with the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And I have the scars to prove it. But I never let fear of making a fool of myself stop me, or fear of being hurt. Because every time I have loved something truly, deeply, honestly, my life becomes a little more worthwhile. And I like to think that others' lives becomes worthwhile too. My friend is right. My scars are proof that I've had my heart broken. But I wear them proudly, because each one is a badge that says I tried over and over to say yes to life. Because ultimately, I believe life is worth saying yes to. And I love it when life says yes back. I have been hurt because there are things in life worth hurting for, and most every one of them has a name, a face, and a story.
And as she continued to speak, the people drew closer to hear what she had to say. Even the stranger saw that he would not be the next mayor, and he was very disappointed. In fact, it was enough of a heartbreak that it became his first scar, and his first glimpse of everything he had never, to this point, been able to know, everything that would make all the difference in his ability to really know love and to really be happy. It is said that the village of beneficence went on to become even greater than before, even more loving. And the reason is that the people there realized that to stand on the side of love was to embrace one another. Churches and individuals around our nation so many reached out this past summer when we most needed them, and stretched their hearts to our community with their support and cards filled with love. And here are the cards woven together in a heart, filled with their compassion. They helped us heal. We thank you to the creators of this heart, mostly Mina, and then Chris and myself. We especially recognize mine and Daphne for her talent and dedication and hours and hours. This summer, this banner will join 2 additional banners to be hung in our sanctuary's back wall. Love holds all of us. Know that our hearts are in a holy place, for we are always connected to one another. Deep down, our hearts beat in one universal rhythm.